Good morning. Good morning. If you guys can take your seats right now. Welcome to the second day. I'm pleased to present the representatives of the LKY School, SIPA, LSC, and Sciences Po. The sessions will be chaired by Richard Dupont, President of Sciences Po.
Yes, it works. As you all know, it's just impossible to chair Howard, Kishore, and Robert, so I wouldn't chair. Just to tell you that this morning and this afternoon we'll have to think a lot about what is a public policy education, what are the challenges that we have to cope with in a globalized world, and can we use the recipes of yesterday to face the problems of tomorrow? I guess the answer is no. But how to elaborate on the new challenges, the new issues, the new tools that we need. What we have in common, I guess, is a dangerous form of megalomania, because we have to think today what could be useful to policymakers or for policymakers within 10 or 15 or 20 years. So our capacity today to invent the future is quite an exciting task that we have. It's quite a difficult one. So the first person that will try to answer all these questions, Howard Davis, because at the LSE they don't only educate future policymakers, they form governments and they do politics.
Thank you, Richard. I'd just like to say that I do actually have a tie, and if anyone would feel that they'd take my remarks more seriously if I put it on, I will do so. But otherwise, no, the others can look more like the Chinese Politburo this morning. I wanted to begin with just a few personal observations and then lead into what the LSE is doing specifically within this public policy network. Because I think when I started my career, I was probably the identikit candidate for one of the MPAs we're now offering, because I left Oxford with a almost completely useless degree, which had mainly involved sitting reading Proust, which was formative in a certain sense, but not very practical, and was sent by the British Foreign Office to our embassy in Paris. And there, it was at a time when relations between the UK and France at political level vary from abysmal to poor. And we were in one of the abysmal phases at the time. And I, of course, had to front up with French officials, French technocrats, and they were all énarques. And most of them had been Sciences Po as well. And I was quite intimidated because they seemed to have a kind of formation and an education in public policy, which I was completely lacking in. Now, of course, later in my life, I realized that this was all a front, and that actually they were deeply uncertain, too, about quite what the role of the state was. But nonetheless, I was intimidated by that and decided that I ought, as we say in English, reculer pour mieux sauter, and that I ought to get myself some education. And I had quite a sort of crisis of confidence, and so I decided I would go back to university. But I was very committed to the public policy world, and yet there was nothing to do. And there wasn't at that time any policy any program that you could really find in the United Kingdom which was targeted at turning me from a pure amateur into someone who had an intellectual framework to think about public policy. In fact, I ended up going to Stanford Business School, which was okay. In fact, it was a marvelous school in lots of ways. But actually, I had to kind of cobble together in my program some public economics and things in order to try to produce a version of what I felt I needed. And I think that that little story, which is 35 years old now, I guess, shows to me why the kind of MPA programs and the suite of MPAs that we're now offering are very important. And in that intervening period, I think the challenge of public policy making has become much more complex. The relationships between government and public agencies and the private sector have altered in character very significantly during that time, and they're now very complex indeed. At the time in the UK, I thought, and most people thought, that the government was integrating forward into new areas of economic activity. This was an era of nationalisation. In fact, in 2 jobs later in the Treasury, I was there at the turn of the tide because I spent the first year nationalising British aerospace in the Treasury and the 3rd year of my job there privatising British aerospace, which had a neat sort of symmetry to it. And at that point, one realised that this interface was extremely complex and interesting. And indeed, it's that interface which I've spent really the rest of my career in different guises. Now, coming to today, of course, the major change is that we're now in a completely different international environment. It no longer makes sense, I think, to contemplate a purely domestic program of public policy. So many of the issues which public policymakers are wrestling with have a global context. And while I'm not one of those who thinks there is no domestic policy anymore, it's quite clear that countries can take different, sometimes radically different approaches. Nonetheless, they must do so within an understanding of the global context in which they operate. And so I think the MPA program that we are now developing at the LSE, which you might say is just 30 years late, but nonetheless better late than never, is, I think, well suited to fill this long-standing gap. We have 2 MPAs at the school at the moment, the PEP, Public Economic Policy Program, which has a strong economic framework to it, and a public management program, which is slightly more general in terms of the management of public bodies and management of public organizations. And this year we will be graduating 53 people from those 2 programs, which is growth. I mean, it's been going for 3 years and the numbers have grown each year. And for us, the partnership dimension of this is now very significant indeed, because 24 of the 53 graduating MPAs this year will have been on a joint program from one of the other schools. So this is now not, from the LSE's point of view, the GPPN is not at the margin of our MPA. It is half, more or less, of our MPA of people who are spending 1 year in one of the other schools and 1 year with us. That means this is a very central initiative for us. We are encouraged by the way we are working with the other partners. The programs in their case are somewhat different. The catchment is somewhat different. Our school is perhaps more comprehensively global than the others. But nonetheless, I think the match is good. And we're finding that the quality of students who are moving from one place to another is broadly comparable, which makes the program quite smooth. We have not encountered people who have come and either struggled hopelessly or who have been so intellectually superior that we have felt embarrassed. In neither case has that happened. So I think that this initiative looks promising to us. I think it's beyond the launchpad stage now. We have got a decent size of cohort going through, and we fully expect it to grow in the future. And we expect that the growth of the program will itself produce a development of the curriculum, and that the interface at the student level between our faculties will cause us all to learn more about the content of a program of public policy management for the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Robert?
Thanks very much. I am not Alan Brinkley, but I want to bring greetings from Alan, who wasn't able to be here today, and also from the acting dean of SEPA, John Coatsworth, who also regrets that he wasn't able to make the trip to Singapore. And I also, before I say a few things about SEPA and our participation in the network, I want to thank Kishore and the entire faculty and staff of the Lee Kuan Yew School for putting on what's been so far a fantastic event. And being such gracious hosts. I think we're now at the hinge of the conference. We spent yesterday in a series of fascinating and really penetrating discussions of a set of key issues in global public policy. We're now about to embark on a day of thinking about the challenges and the opportunities that we face in teaching and thinking and researching public policy in a global context, and training students for careers in global public policy. These two enterprises, thinking about public policy as a set of interlocking global problems, and training students globally who come to us globally for careers in global public policy. These two enterprises are central to what we do at SEPA at Columbia and the way we think about public policy and training public policy students. SEPA was founded in the aftermath of World War II as the School of International Affairs. And we've offered a Master of International Affairs degree since 1946. Our MPA program is now coming up on its 30th anniversary. So for more than 60 years, SEPA has been organized around the premise that public policy is a global enterprise. It's inherently and inescapably a global enterprise, and there's no way to think coherently or sensibly about public policy and the challenge of making and executing and implementing sound public policies, whether they're domestic or international or interstate or at whatever level of the international system they occur. There's no way to sensibly and reasonably think about public policy without thinking about the global context. And this challenge and this conviction is even more central to what we do at SEPA today. Our students in our various degree programs come from around 100 countries. We're located in a city that, like our partner cities, Singapore, Paris, London, is a global city, a global center of trade, of policy, of commerce, of intellectual life, of artistic life. And that the very globalness of New York City informs the way we think about and approach public policy and training our students, as I'm sure it does for our colleagues. So that's why, for all of these reasons, it's very important to SEPA and to Columbia to be part of the global public policy network and to spend time with our partners and colleagues and friends here thinking about these issues and sharing our thoughts and ideas. And we're very delighted to be here on behalf of my colleagues from SEPA who are here with us and some who are not here. Again, I thank Kishore and the network for putting on a great conference, and look forward to spending time with you this afternoon talking about some of these issues.
Thank you very much, Robert. Kishore, may I join to the contents of congratulations and saying thank you very much for this exciting 2 days we have with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Richard. Howard has got a very unusual knack for putting his finger on the most important issue of the day, which is, of course, whether or not you should wear a tie or not wear a tie. And I say this because I don't know how many of you watched BBC this morning, and they were describing, they had a picture of the future of China I think the commentator even said that the future of the world lies in the hands of these men who wear dark suits and red ties. So I rest my case. More seriously, when I became dean 3 years, 3 months ago, and of course I was very excited about this job. Actually, one of the first things I learned is how the origins of public policy education are very much North American. And I guess it began essentially as a North American enterprise. You also, of course, have public policy schools in Europe too, but I gather not with the same degree of intensity or the same number yet. So the first thing I discovered is that when you set up a school of public policy in Singapore, you actually end up inheriting a great deal of North American curriculum. You also get faculty trained in North America, and you end up, in a sense, having a very North American perspective surfacing in your school, which is not necessarily bad. But at the same time, the students in our school come from all over Asia. And for them, let's say you give them a case study taken from, say, a developed country context. It doesn't have as much resonance for them as something that comes from their own context. So the first big challenge we face setting up a school of public policy in Singapore, and we happen to be, I think, probably the first school of public policy in Southeast Asia, was to figure out how we make the transition and, in a sense, change the curriculum, change the methods of teaching, and also create a learning environment that is more appropriate to a school which has, 80 to 90% Asian students. And that's why when Columbia actually originally approached us and say, hey, LKY, SPP, would you be interested in joining the Global Public Policy Network? We said, wonderful. That's exactly what we need today. And as you know, that you saw yesterday in the discussions about globalization, we felt that we needed to join a global community of public policy schools. And that's why we reacted so enthusiastically to this invitation to partner with LSE, Sionspol, and Columbia. And yesterday I began my remarks by saying that the theme of my remarks was going to be the Asianization of globalization. Today, I think, if I had to, in a sense, put across one theme, the point I want to make is that for us, the challenge today is truly the globalization of public policy education. In a sense, ensuring that all of us, no matter where our schools of public policy are, whether they're in Latin America or Africa or North America or Europe or Asia, actually are able to deliver an education that prepares our students for a world in which globalization is so important. And I discovered actually that even though everyone talks about globalization, inevitably what comes up is the perspective of globalization from the Davos men, the elite up there. And I confess I happen to be also a Davos man from time to time. But there are 6.5 billion people in the world, 3.5 billion in Asia, close to 1 billion in Africa, close to, I think, 700 million in Latin America. And then, of course, you have 8 to 900 million in North America and Western Europe. How you integrate their perspectives and make them alive in a school of public policy is a big challenge. And that's why I think it's very good that we have this network addressing these issues and why we have this whole range of subjects in today's sessions. So I'm really looking forward to the discussions today, and I hope you'll participate in them actively because we have a big job to do. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you, Kishore. Kishore, yesterday in your welcoming speech, you asked us to be bold, innovative, and provocative. Today, this morning, I tried to be bold, provocative, perhaps innovative. My statement is France is back in globalization. France and Europe are back in globalization. And two arguments. I will tell you a tale of the last century in the oldest part of Europe, i.e. France. When I became an énarque, or what, 12 to 20 to 25 years ago, without doubt, what was the education of a French policymaker? First, no research at all. Research is for academics. Academics are not for action. They do research. Sometimes they find something. Usually, their findings are dangerous. So first, no research. Secondly, only two disciplines were taught to future policymakers in France: law and economics. Don't speak of sociology, political science, international relations. All those were of no importance to compete and to belong to the best students of the National School of Administration. And we have today the same National School of Administration. So, why France is back in globalized world? Because our National School of Administration has less and less importance. Why so? Because public policy education is nowadays delivered in our common master of public affairs with international students, double degrees with your free institutions. Academics are running the school, which is perhaps dangerous. And we try to interconnect our students, as you told us, to new subjects, to subjects of the future, and not to recipes of the past. So I do hope, and I think it's not only possible, but it's probable, that French universities, European, at least continental European universities, may of some help in educating future policymakers coming from all over the world, interacting and interconnected with every part of the world. Thank you. So it's time to stop. I'm 5 minutes late, but it's okay.
No, I think she's going to announce that Bob Klitgaard and Marie Slaughter are going to take our places now and start the proceedings for the day for them.
And while we're doing the change, can I just remind you to switch your cell phones off if you have not already done so? Professor Anne-Marie Slaughter.
Good morning, everyone. Kishore works us hard to come all the way to Singapore and have such a wonderful intellectual discussion yesterday, and then today a discussion of the future of public policy education. Bob and I have been tasked with leading you through the day, both through the breakout sessions with other facilitators and then coming back together this afternoon and distilling our collective knowledge and conducting a conversation. To start that conversation, I'm going to talk about three problems that I have pondered in my 5 years as dean and continue to ponder, and then I'll turn it to Bob to launch us on the day's discussion. So I'm a lawyer by training, a lawyer and a political scientist. I have a PhD in international relations and a law degree. And when I became dean at the Woodrow Wilson School, what was most apparent to me, following on Richard de Kuan's analysis, was that the top leaders in the United States government were not coming from public policy schools. They were coming from law schools. And indeed, our brightest undergraduates at the Woodrow Wilson School, and it's an elite undergraduate program, all want to go to law school. Now, increasingly, they want to get a joint law degree with an MPA, which I consider to be great progress. But here we are preparing people to be leaders in government, and yet the way the American government elite is structured, it is overwhelmingly lawyers and economists, back to the two disciplines. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about how do we connect the best students with what I genuinely do think is the best education. Having taught law for 12 years, I think law is a wonderful discipline. But the fact is, sending lawyers into government with a knowledge of contracts and torts and civil procedure and constitutional law, that's all very well. But they don't know anything about economics. They don't know anything about statistics. They can't actually diagnose a policy problem in the way that it needs to be diagnosed. They know very little about management, and they don't understand the actual policy process. So, from my point of view, we're offering the better education, and we're offering an essential education for people who wanted to go into government or public service more generally, and yet it's very hard to change the cultural norms. And Richard and I talked about this last night. It's not easy to dislodge the hold of ENA on France's elite or Harvard, Yale, Chicago, Stanford, Columbia law schools on America. So that is a challenge that I continue to wrestle with. I'll just say one of our solutions, in addition to encouraging joint degrees with many different law schools, has been to define what we do as providing teaching people to take disciplinary knowledge and to apply them to the solution of public problems. Now, that is my definition of what a public policy school is, because we do not teach public management. We do a little bit. We're not public administration. We're public affairs, and what I say is that is taking students and teaching them to apply economics, political science, natural science, psychology, sociology, to the solution of public problems. And indeed, I actually have 12 different disciplines on my faculty, ranging from astrophysics to history. So but then that says, maybe what we should be doing is taking people who have PhDs in those subjects or other professional training and teaching them how to take their knowledge and apply it to the solution of public problems. So this year we have launched a new one-year Masters of Public Policy that is aimed at PhDs in the natural sciences and engineering and doctors, MDs, telling all those people, you have the PhD, you want to apply your knowledge to the many, many public problems that need your knowledge, from the environment to development to national security, we will give you a one-year degree and teach you how to do that, rather as an alternative to taking the person who comes in after college and working and studies health and health policy. We're taking doctors. We'll see how that goes. But that is one set of problems I think we all wrestle with, and at its worst, you could say we offer a credential to many people around the world, and they use that credential to go into their government, but we're not training the top people in our own government, and that needs to change. The second issue that I wrestle with, and again, Michel foreshadowed this, is the production of knowledge, because all our faculty are jointly appointed, but the production of disciplinary knowledge, as important as it is, needs to be connected to the study of public policy problems. Our solution has been research centers. We have 19 centers and programs, about 7 major research centers, which means 10 or more faculty are connected to those centers. They run certificates. They do work in health and health policy and in the study of democratic politics and international relations. The challenge is, how do you connect faculty research, academic research, to student education? How do you move from the production of that very important knowledge back to the teaching and also student engagement in that research? In the natural sciences, that's a lab. That's not hard. You have a faculty member who is researching something in science, and the graduate students and the undergraduates and the postdocs all work together. I think a lot about how to take our research centers and make them the equivalent of a lab where there are students at every level and faculty working together. And more broadly, and I think we'll talk about this later today, how do we move toward a more collaborative model of production of knowledge? And we'll talk about how you use the web for this. But if you think about Wikipedia, if you think about a notion where you build knowledge collaboratively by bringing people together within a university, across disciplines, and across borders, to go back to Kishore's point, then it seems to me in our research centers, we have the nucleus of that set of networks, of that possibility of the collaborative production of knowledge. But how to operationalize that is a real challenge. The third question that I wrestle with when I'm not reading really cheerful tomes about nuclear proliferation and global epidemics and environmental disasters, which is my normal fare as an international relations scholar, is how do we get the very best people into government? The Woodrow Wilson School sends almost 80% of our students into public service. That's not a problem. We are blessed with being able to offer scholarships so our students don't have to repay the debt. But only half of those students go into government. The rest are going into non-governmental organizations. The rest are saying to me, I want to make a difference on global warming. I want to make a difference on human rights. Why should I go into the government? That's slow and bureaucratic and it doesn't get anything done. I'm going to go to work for CARE or Human Rights Watch or the Sierra Club. They are nimble. They are working with the private sector. That's where the future of public service. Indeed, I just read an article that similarly in Japan, the Japanese are having trouble attracting the very best into government service. Singapore seems to succeed, but by paying salaries that in the United States will never fly. There is no chance that we are going to pay our government officials that kind of money. I tell my students they should expect to spend time in all 3 sectors, that the solution of global problems requires the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and the private sector. And to be prepared to tackle problems ranging from nuclear proliferation to terrorism to global health, they should expect to spend some time in all 3 sectors. But the challenge remains, at a time at least when our government is not well organized in many ways to tackle these problems, when it is bureaucratic, when it pays very little, how do we convince a new generation that without top officials in government, the rest of it won't work? So those are 3 problems. How do we think about who we educate to solve public problems? How do we think about collaborative models of producing knowledge and teaching? And how do we get students into government? I hope that by the end of today, we will have wonderful answers to all 3. And with that, let me turn to Bob Klitgaard.
Good morning, everyone. After this session, we're going to move into different breakout groups on 6 different topics in 3 headings. The first heading is curriculum, what we teach. The second one is pedagogy, how we teach it. And the third one has a charming title, the policy school enterprise. It's an interesting question. I guess that talks about such things as how do we do international exchanges. All 3 of these are a chance to take advantage of this audience. It's a wonderfully diverse group with experts and policymakers and faculty members from institutions around the world. A chance to share experiences about what works, what we've learned, and then we can all take home your inspiration back to our institutions. So that'll be a fascinating opportunity for reflection. Later in the day, we'll come back and try to share some of the lessons that we've learned. But we could do that if we were based in some other place besides this conference with yesterday's stimulation about globalizing Asia, and I would change the word and Asian globalization. Both those are happening. We have that context of globalization to think about, and we have the context of Asia to think about. Yesterday we were told about some interesting policy issues. We were talking about the challenges of Asia's economic integration, monetary policy, some of the world institutions that are dealing with trade and flows of finance. We talked about the environment and about social policies. And I think one of the themes that came across there is also reflected in the bio data of many of the participants. Many of you have interests in such terms as multilateral governance, or public-private partnerships, or collaboration across the divides of nonprofit, for-profit, and public. And these are apposite because all those policy issues we talked about yesterday are not the province only of government. Nor can we just say, let's privatize it, that'll take care of it. Inevitably, there are going to be complicated partnerships. And this begs the question, what are we doing in our policy schools to address the reality of the institutional environments in which solutions will be sought and we hope progress will be made? In fact, we might even think about the notion of public policy as a misnomer for the challenge of creating the relationships and partnerships across these sectors, which will, little by little, ebbing and flowing, tacking and moving straight ahead, we hope lead to better institutional arrangements and more progress to a solution of many of our most important problems. So one question is, does Asia have anything particular to teach us about these institutional arrangements across the public-private divide? Two facts. One is that if we look at transnational institutions in the public and nonprofit sectors, you find less of them in Asia than you do in Europe, South America, or North America. Timothy Smith did a study 5 or 6 years ago that showed that the prevalence of such institutions was perhaps half, I don't know what the denominator would be, that you'd expect given the situation on other continents. But Hilton Root and Ed Campos, in their book, The Keys of the Asian Miracle, about 10 years ago, had a very interesting observation that it wasn't the privatization that led to the miracle, nor was it the kind of heavy investment model that some economists believed in, both before and after, but it was something to do with the institutional arrangements between government and business that allowed for a wide variety of consultation and collaboration across that boundary, leading, it was argued then, to better policies. Also perhaps leading to my second topic, more cronyism and corruption. Yesterday, you know, or this last few days, we know the Chinese leadership has been meeting, and it was interesting to hear the president of China use a term which previous presidents of China have also used. Corruption is a cancer. The president of Vietnam, the leader of Vietnam, has also used that word, cancer. The topic of corruption is the number 1, 2, or 3 issue in campaigns in countries like Thailand and Taiwan and Indonesia. Throughout the region, corruption and bad government is a challenge that could affect the success of moving, as somebody said yesterday, from poor to the middle and now up to prosperity. Singapore and Hong Kong are exemplars of places that used to be cesspools of corruption and have cleaned things up. Within the countries, there are towns like Naga City in the Philippines, which has done a marvelous job of providing good local governance. And there are many experiments underway throughout Asia which are very promising. We come back again to the idea it's not just a government problem, but it's a public-private nonprofit issue, because bad government and bad institutions infect all those places. In fact, some people have said that we've been working closely from the Peter Drucker School of Management at Claremont Graduate University with partners of ours in China and Korea. And in China, the statement has been that the problems of capitalism, Chinese style, if they fail, will be undermined by poor leadership and unethical management. I don't know if you agree with that. But we certainly see it in the United States of America, in Katrina, in Enron, and in many other government programs, and we see it around the world, I think, that one person has called bad management and unethical leadership the moral equivalent of global warming. So if we take that on, we have to think carefully about what we do about the institutional challenges we face in Asia, which could provide some guidance, we hope, for other countries. Before we dismiss you and get off to the breakout sessions, let me suggest 3 short topics that I'm interested in addition to these two big themes, in the way we might address these partnerships, challenges, and the corruption problem more generally as a major theme of governance and public policy education in our region and perhaps in our world. First is the importance of success stories. Within each of our countries, there are ministries that are more or less well-run compared to other ministries, or cities that have made progress in good governance compared to other places, or public-private partnerships that seem to have worked remarkably well, nurtured by free flows of information and trust, have led to better decisions. What are those? Have we documented them? Have we celebrated them? Have we shared them with our students and with each other? I'm going to be very interested in see if you have good examples to share with us. A second one is how we can use the new technologies available to us to build new kinds of teaching, research, and community. I'm very interested in something that Anne-Marie mentioned, which is creating virtual communities that are not like distance learning, but are ways of doing collaborative research and learning. I would hope that the GPPN could be a harbinger for us of effective collaborative teaching, having a signature course that would be jointly taught, or having a signature research project, or maybe even virtual research conferences, particularly for young researchers interested in taking on some of the hardest problems of the region and the world, to get methodological help from each other and from professors around the world. And finally, I think it's important to think about the partnership idea in how we do our work. We have a session on bringing professional practice into the classroom, but maybe we should think about other ways to teach our students and to share our work. Instead of us doing our research and publishing it or proclaiming it from the television cameras and the podiums, is it possible to convene, to think of ourselves as convening places for people to do their safest and most creative thinking on some of the world's hardest problems, where we might bring, yes, our research and data and our uncertainties and our honesty, but with the idea of stimulating them through their creative conversations across the public, private, nonprofit divide to have even more creative and effective ideas than we would ever have, and then perhaps linking them in some sort of virtual network afterwards, so it's not a one-off conference. So in these 3 areas, documenting success and celebrating it together, creating ways to use technology in our teaching and learning even more effectively, and thinking about our role as institutions, as convening leaders from government, business, and civil society to take on the hardest problems with us providing a rather junior and more humble role than academics are used to taking. Wouldn't these be wonderful things to talk about today? Maybe I'll ask our Master of Ceremonies then to take over, or Mistress of Ceremonies, take over and tell us where we should go now.
So there are a total of 6 breakout sessions. With a total of 6 breakout sessions, each will be held twice. The first session will be here in this auditorium. The second session will be on the 3rd floor of the building that connects this building and the building that we had lunch in, on the 3rd floor of the first room. Session C will be also in that same building, 2nd floor, first room. Session D will be in this building, 4th floor, the law seminar room. Session E, again, in the middle building, Manassa Meyer, 3rd floor. And Session F also in Manassa Meyer, 3rd floor. And you'll see lots of signs everywhere. Any confusion, there's lots of people outside who will give you directions. And we'll be back here at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. We've come to the most difficult hour of the conference. The second afternoon of the second day is when you can feel that people begin to flag a little. The number of people in the room goes down a bit. And, it's going to take a bit of an effort to, regain much of the energy we had yesterday and this morning. So I hope that you will all take a very deep breath, practice yoga, and energize yourself. Anyway, more seriously, we're going to have a great afternoon, actually, because we will have from 2 to 3 o'clock a few presentations. First by Anne-Marie Slaughter, on PolicyNet. To wake us up, it's going to be a pretty exciting song and dance show. And then we'll have Pham from the United Nations Development Program. And then we'll have Michael, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Michel Sauquet, forgive me if I mispronounce it, from the IRG. And then after that, if any of you have anything to share in terms of what you would like your colleagues in the public policy fraternity to know about, please feel free to share it at this session. And then after that's over, from 2 to 3, we will have presentations by the 6 facilitators from 3 to 4. And I attended a couple of the sessions. I must say the discussions were excellent. So this gives us a wonderful chance to catch up and find out what happened at the different sessions, especially the sessions that we missed. And then we'll have round-up remarks initially by Anne-Marie Slaughter and Bob Klitgaard as the co-facilitators for the day, and some very, very profound, brilliant, insightful remarks by the 4 GPPN leaders at the end of the day. So something that's worth waiting for. So don't leave early. So anyway, with that, Anne-Marie, over to you.
I'm afraid you're going to get very tired of me. I'm wearing different hats here. This afternoon, I want to talk to you about something quite different. 2 initiatives at the Woodrow Wilson School, above all, PolicyNet, which is something we've created, which I'm going to describe. But instead of just describing that initiative, what I really want to do is talk to you about how we can use technology to think about different kinds of knowledge production and build on the discussion that we had this morning. Now, I have to start by introducing Donna Liu, who is the progenitor of the University Channel and the executive director of PolicyNet. Donna was a CNN producer in Asia. She came to the Princeton as a fellow, journalism fellow, and after her year was up, she came to me and she said, you know, public broadcasting has declined precipitously in the United States. It's harder and harder to get really good public discussions and knowledge about all the things that we have readily at our fingertips at the university. So the University Channel was born, and I thought this was such a great idea that I essentially funded her like a venture capitalist. And the result is we now have the University Channel, which you're going to see a little bit about. It gets 1 million hits a month. Think about that. That's a lot. People going to iTunes or the University Channel and downloading lectures and discussions from universities across the United States and abroad, also think tanks. It is effectively part of our outreach mission as schools of public policy. It's not just about our students. It's about making our knowledge available to an interested public. Donna then also took over PolicyNet, which was something born of a collaboration between the Woodrow Wilson School and the Center for International Governance Innovation. And basically what I'm going to do this afternoon is teach you what she has taught me, because I am not a tech expert. In fact, I can't even operate my own PowerPoint, so Donna's going to do that. But I want us to present to you what she showed me about how we can use PolicyNet, how we can effectively use social networking for the kind of knowledge sharing and knowledge production that we talked about this morning. So, public policy schools on the web. So I wanted to start by something I think we've all experienced, the shift from a web page to a web identity. And some of us are further ahead than others in a personal sense as well as a school sense. But go back, this is the Woodrow Wilson School web page from 1997. And it's not terribly exciting. It has essentially a list of things that are available. You can click on them and get information, end of story. It is entirely something that purveys information. Now go to the Woodrow Wilson School webpage 2007. This is not yet quite up. I'm sure many of you have had the difficulties of getting your web page to be what you want it to be, but we've just done another redesign, second one in my time as dean. And if you look, you'll see it's very different. In the first place, it's multimedia. You can't see it here, but that's a web crawl, something we stole from the Kennedy School, actually. It will move and tell you different things going on at any given moment. So when you go on, you'll be able to not just to see this static picture, but a ongoing stream of information. It's got push technology. So this is the ability, of course, to click on RSS feed and have our messages go directly to your email. I don't know if you all do this. On my homepage, I sign up for RSS feed from specific blogs that I'm interested in, or from the Council on Foreign Relations, which has a very good website, and they let me know, and every time their site has been updated, and then I go directly to their website. So you can do that here. Very useful for alumni. And then, of course, it has hyperlinks. So you go to the website and you can click on any number of links, and they'll take you to other websites, both within ours but also outside. So what we thought we'd do is show you what happens if you link to the university channel. Now, again, the university channel has 4 sponsor schools, us, Columbia, Texas, and Middlebury College. And then it has many schools that have joined as participants, all of whom make their content available to us. We then make it available to the world via the university channel. If you look at this, the university channel links you to all sorts of other things. So you go to the university channel on that lower line, you can go to the university channel on iTunes. And indeed, a lot of students get it that way. You can go to the university channel on YouTube. Now we're getting beyond the realm of what I do on a regular basis, but my students certainly live on YouTube. So if anybody's ever clicked on Comedy Central and wanted to see Jon Stewart routines, comedy routines, now you can go on YouTube and see university channel lectures. University channel in Second Life. And I told Donna that if there are questions about this, she has to answer them. I've never been on Second Life, but Second Life is an alternative virtual world. Yeah, anybody under 30 is nodding their heads. Everybody over 30 is looking at me like, what on earth is this? So you can create an avatar and go and watch what's on the university channel on Second Life. And finally, you can download from iTunes to take your lectures on your iPod, either vodcasting, that's a vodcast of me, or podcasting. And this, we find our students and our alumni use a lot. So, if they're running, they want to download something, they want to listen, they want to watch a lecture. The only real downside is that if you did this with classes, students would no longer go to class. They would just download the whole thing and watch it later. What works beautifully, though, is our students who can't come to a lecture. They've got a sports event or something else. They'll then download the lecture, even from Princeton, much less hearing from our faculty when they go to other schools and hearing very distinguished faculty from other schools. Okay, so that's the sort of the change in the website. Now we wanted to talk about the change in the way we use the web, from just reading that original passive statement to using the web. And here we come to collaborative ideas. So the first thing is online participation, so that when, on any of these sites, if you are on Facebook and you're watching a university channel video, this one's from Lawrence Wright, you can comment. Right, just like a blog. You can comment and other people can comment. So it's basically a conversation that's happening around an actual lecture. And indeed, many conferences now have an online conference at the same time as they have a regular conference. You can share. Now here, I'm new to this technology, but again on Facebook, you can be watching something and decide, you know, my friend, my colleague, my mother might enjoy this. So you can you click share and then go to an email. Just as when you're reading the New York Times and you want to email an article to someone, you do this with these videos. Then you can take all that back to your own page. When you're customizing your own profile, you can have, normally my website just has my CV and a couple of other things, but you can have information about yourself. You can have the various videos, information that you like, that others who come to your site can then see. The reason we emphasize this is exactly the viral model of how online communities are built. People come to your site, they see things you like, they link to those, you see things you like, you send them to them, and everyone continually links back to these information sites. And here again, if you now look, now this is it's NASPA? It's the NASPA. So this is the final sort of collaborative use of the web, where this is a NASPA website where people from MPAs and MPPs on Facebook can come and post questions and answer questions. So you're creating this online community around specific sets of questions. All right. That's the emerging world. As I was talking to Donna earlier, I said, I'm so glad I have children because I would be completely lost without them in some of this technology. I will say, though, in my experience, once I started blogging, everyone under, all the students, suddenly I discovered where they were living. So this is technology that is, of course, deeply ingrained in our students' lives. Here are the problems that many people raise with working this way. One is anonymity, the difficulties of participating when you don't know who's out there. And we have a system of authentication, so only certain people can actually participate. Credibility. Well, here, if you think about public policy schools, all of our schools linked together in a kind of social network so that our faculty and our students can collaborate, we have peer review because everybody will, other students, other faculty will constantly review what each other is posting. So you're not, things that are wrong will get weeded out. Curating, we have on the university channel, Donna curates it. On any group discussion, you can have a curator to make sure that you don't just get absolutely overwhelmed by comments, and also to make sure the comments are okay. Lack of focus, again, if you're just on the web and you've got a little bit of everything. Within the public policy community on the web, we can target specific issues we want to talk about and maintain the relevance of any discussion. Too open. And again, this is related to anonymity. Anybody can come on, and if having participated blogging and have anybody comment, they're anonymous comments and they come from pretty crazy people, and it can be very unpleasant. You can only participate on PolicyNet if you're invited to participate. So again, it would be our students, our faculty, our staff. And finally, lack of standards. Here, by virtue of inviting specific schools to join this community, we would maintain our collective scholarly standards for the kind of dialogue that we could have. So here, again, if you now look at PolicyNet, you see very distinguished schools, many of yours, that are listed as members. That means all their faculty and all their students can participate, whether it is to broadcast a conference. This conference right now, as you saw at the outset, is being broadcast on PolicyNet. People can follow it, people can comment. But more generally, and let me just go on then to authenticated members. That's what we just talked about, so you can be sure that you know who's there. The standards issue, that's, again, our schools. And then the collaborative tools. So this is where I want to throw this open. Right now, we've used PolicyNet for student discussion, for conferences. People blog conferences we hold on the Wilson School, and they're on PolicyNet. But this is what Bob Klitgaard was talking about. The potential is absolutely enormous for us to decide, let's say the Wilson School and the Lee Kuan Yew School and the Tokyo School want to have a collaborative research project on global governance. The faculty can come together, posting papers, working together, commenting on each other's papers on PolicyNet. They can engage students, and the students can engage each other. Students who are working on particular papers where it might be extremely valuable to know what people in Germany or China or Africa thought on a particular subject, they can actually get that information. Michael Storper was talking about inequality issues yesterday. It would be actually wonderful to have a discussion of inequality issues with people who are in countries much less privileged. So the possibilities for building a policy community online are as infinite as the uses of social networking technology. I think it's worth thinking about PolicyNet as the social and knowledge network face of something like GPPN, where we can build increasingly deep communities, and we can then experiment with collective production of knowledge, and then beyond that, you can imagine co-teaching and various other kinds of partnership. Let me just conclude by, again, this is PolicyNet, there's University Channel. The two are also combined in the sense that the University Channel brings together this huge amount of knowledge from lectures at all of our schools. That's available. That's the outreach part. And then we have the ability of building on that kind of knowledge in a collaboration part. Thank you very much. I hope that kept you awake after lunch. Yes, oh, absolutely. I may ask Donna to help answer them. Yes, any questions? Richard.
It's what, 3,000, right? What are we charging? It's 3,000 for U-Channel a year. The PolicyNet.
You want you to speak into the.
U-Channel participation is 3,000 per institution per year. For PolicyNet, you should speak with Dwight Storing, who is the PolicyNet coordinator at CG, and he can give you the details on participation there.
I'll just say on the University Channel, our 4 charter members put in a big hunk of money to get this up and running, and then we offer participation for a much lower fee, but it works very well. Other questions? Good. Thank you. I hope you join.
Good afternoon. My name is Pham. I'm the manager of the regional center based in Colombo. The regional center is a center of the United Nations Development Program. First, I'd like to thank Dean Kishore Mahbubani for inviting me to this conference. My thanks also goes to Rob Garris from SIPA. And my thanks also particularly would go to my friend and my former dean from SIPA, Robin Lewis, who in fact introduced us last year to GPPN. The PowerPoint presentation, I'm not sure about the power, but at least we have 3 points for you. Who we are, what we do, and what do we propose. And it's in connection of the overall discussion from what I've heard over the last day and a half about the utility and the use of networks, whether it's formal or informal, as a basis to share experiences, bad or good, to share the lessons learned. And it addresses 3 areas in terms of in policy making. One is the need for a network to transfer knowledge. 2 is to look at the whole issue of capacity development and knowledge transfer. And the third one is about data access and data accuracy. And the whole idea is how to build up a virtuous loop or cycle where better data will inform better policy making through better analytical work. So let me start by presenting who we are and what we do. UNDP is a global development network. We have a field presence in all regions. We have about 166 country offices represented there, a mix of international as well as national staff. Not only we are a network of countries, but we are also a network in the true terms in the true meaning of the term, that we are connected physically, but also virtually at the country level, but also at the regional level, something that I will go into later on. We, as a trusted partners of the governments and our partners at the national level, we provide advice and knowledge so that governments and our partners, on the basis of that, could make informed decisions and policy choices. We do that by connecting and by tapping into not only our own network of policy advisors, researchers, but also we do go outside as well, within the UN system, but also outside the UN system, to tap into that talent. Let me then go to talk about the regional centers of UNDP. We have a network of regional centers in all the regions. In Bratislava, in Europe, in Joburg and Dakar, in Africa, Panama, Trinidad, in Latin America, Beirut, in the Middle East, and in Asia and the Pacific, we have 3 centers, one located in Bangkok, one located in Colombo, and the third one is located in Fiji, in Suva, Fiji. Bangkok and Colombo, we are divided. The division of labor is along portfolio lines, whereas Bangkok deals with governance, crisis prevention, and recovery. The center in Colombo focus specifically on poverty reduction, macroeconomics, trade, and HIV and AIDS. The center in the Pacific focus its attention solely on the Pacific Islands in that part. Overall, we have about 190 staff members located in all 3 centers, and we serve 33 countries in Asia and the Pacific. Of the 33 countries, we have offices in 25 of them. So that geographically, we go from the north, from Mongolia, down to Tonga, and from west to east, we go from Iran to Cook Islands. What are the mandates of the regional centers? Basically, and simply put, 2 mandates. As an in-house consulting arm for our offices and the governments that they work with, and secondly, as a research arm in services of those offices, but also as a research arm in the production of knowledge products, as well as in creating and promoting regional public goods. Our services, therefore, are very focus. One is on client orientation to the offices and the governments and their partners there. 2 is policy advice and research. 3 is capacity development, and I think the idea of building up this network and expanding this network is part of that capacity development effort. And the last one is the closing part and the end part of this virtuous loop. How do we then, after our advice, after our work in the country, capture the experience and share with others? Let me then go to the heart of what we are proposing right now. The idea is fairly straightforward. We do share a vision, and that vision is how do we tap into world-class talents to service our clients in the area of policy makings to meet their challenges, their development challenges. We think the idea that, the underlying idea of what we're proposing is fairly simple. It's a revolving door. It's a virtuous loop linking practitioners and the academic research community. It's also a form of knowledge and partnering and partnership brokering, where we play the role of not only a player in that arena, but also the role of a facilitator and bringing people together for that. And the whole idea is fairly simple. It's a low cost, it's a low investment, it's light structure with the intention to provide a rapid response to the clients we serve. And the potential there that we can go from regional to global as well, linking some of the centers that we have. So the idea and the loop that I've been talking about is to create a synergy between GPPN and your network and UNDP. To the left, upper left, essentially, once we have a request coming from a country office, we will tap into your network. We will contact you. We will discuss with you. We try to match the demand with the profile and the supply and the requirements. Get you connected to the governments and our partners at the field level, implement that, and closing the loop once more by sharing those experiences with others. We're proposing 3 ideas for your consideration. The first one is what we call the Eminent Policy Advisory Panel. The idea is fairly simple. We do get requests quite often from the highest level of government to form an advisory group. For example, in Timor-Leste, the last few months we've been asked by the president of Timor-Leste to advise him and to constitute a panel to advise him on the whole question of how the future revenues coming from energy, from oil, would be used, and how those revenues will be managed to tackle the whole issue of poverty as well as distribution in that country. Fairly simple idea. We identify with you, with your help, the eminent advisors, create a virtual group that will connect with the country itself, and we will support that dialogue as they go. The second idea is what we call an associate expert network. Again, we will tap into your network to get your recommendations and get your ideas about who would be best to bring in for short-term assignments at a country level in various areas or in various sectors. The idea is fairly simple, very similar to the Eminent Advisory Panel. It involves travels to the country office, short-term commitment to the work that those offices required. The last one is a lot more straightforward as well, and that will cater to the student body of the universities. And we call it the student team projects. The idea is to give you access to the work that we are doing in the field. Invite students to participate, a group of students around a number of assignments, whether it's research or policy recommendation, and bring those work and sharing those work back to the clients there. So those are the three ideas that we would like to propose for GPPN and your network. On our side, we prepare to start before the end of the year. I'm ready to commit some resources to pilot this initiative. And certainly we can go on the basis of issues, country, or region. And the idea is also to adopt a variable geometry approach. You know, we take it as the requests come and where there is interest. And we look forward to very much to be working with you and to hear your comments on the three proposals that we just made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am Robin Lewis, and I asked Kishore, and I thank him and his colleagues for giving me a moment to make a few comments on Minh, Pham, and UNDP's proposal, because as some of you know, I've had a career at the SIPA at Columbia, and was also in its gestation the executive director of the GPPN. And this project, I think, speaks very directly to a lot of the objectives that were behind the formation of GPPN, and I wanted to address those, in a sense, from the perspective of the policy schools. A network of policy schools offers the challenge of identifying effective strategies for deploying and enhancing the talents of the various schools. And as GPPN looks to its future, it certainly has, from the beginning, had as among its aspirations to find means of meaningful participation in the policy design and policy making process. And I would suggest that this project offers that in a very unique and timely way. But to speak more specifically to the kinds of concerns that both administrators and faculty at policy schools have rightly had about commitments to such projects, I would point out two things. From the point of view of faculty, a network like this needs to, otherwise it will inevitably fail, it needs to enhance and improve the professional life of its faculty by offering them opportunities, not imperatives. And this project, which has at its heart a kind of index or directory or resource pool of the talents, the collective talents of our faculty of our policy schools, does that. None of this, obviously, is a forced march. It does not present faculty with fait accompli that they must participate. And then, of course, from the administrator's point of view, it is a project, I think, that offers this kind of interface with the policy world with, as Minh put it very well, much better than I could, low cost and light structure, and light structure is one of the kind of fundamental principles of a network. So this is a project in which UNDP very generously is offering some of its own existing infrastructure and some of its resources so that participation either by individual policy schools or by the collectivity, can be commenced without any kind of undue financial or bureaucratic burdens. So I simply wanted to add that perspective because I think that this offers GPPN a very concrete step forward in its future that speaks directly to the unique configuration of capabilities and talents that these policy schools represent. But Minh and I think the GPPN director at the 4 schools look forward to hearing your thoughts on this as well. Thank you.
Yes.
An NGO called Revenue Watch, which is exactly on the theme that you mentioned for West Timor. It's looking at the governance of countries with big natural resources. So I think there's a huge potential for improving communication and also providing very good capstone projects for our students, which we're always looking, and also summer internship projects, which we have tremendous demand for that, and I hope we'll be able to talk specifically about that. But I think it's a great, great idea, and I think there'll be a massive student response.
I am Preeti Davra. I am an ex-UNDP employee of New York and also an ex-CEPA student. And I know that when I graduated 5 years back, it was very difficult to for the school to match us up with, the World Bank or UN type structures, which was ultimately what we took a lot of courses in the UN in school, but yet there was no way to access, what kind of job structure we'd have when we actually graduated. So I think this is a great way of matching students with, the real world of the UN.
Hi, Kent Weaver from Georgetown. I also think that the student projects is a great idea, fits in well with client-based courses. My only suggestion is that each school runs their client-based courses on a different schedule, and so I think it's really important to have good administrative coordination with one person at each school who's your contact and lets you know in advance these are how many people we've got, and so that you get the project proposals out to the schools at a time that fits in with their scheduling for the client-based courses. And if that's done, I think it's a terrific opportunity.
Thank you. Yes. White shirt, white jacket, the lady.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lejinsky from, I'm a second year student at the LSE. And I'm just wondering what kind of impact we can expect from these projects, because part of the success of a capstone is knowing that you're working on something that's actually going to influence a country, have real impact within the country. And based on some of the things that I've read over the past year, there are a lot of policy suggestions out there, and a lot of them haven't necessarily been, I don't mean to sound overly pessimistic, but a lot of them haven't been heeded. And so I'm wondering how we can kind of strengthen this partnership between the governments of these countries, between the UNDP and the project itself.
Okay. Let me, thank you very much. Let me address a number of points. I think the first one is, and I'm sorry that I didn't cover that, but you're absolutely right. We would like to bring the student team project under the oversight of the faculty members, of course. And it's a hub and spoke approach, in a sense that as we match our needs with what you can provide with us, of course we will do that with the faculty, and we'll do that in a systematic way. I think what we're proposing is instead of a bilateral approach to what we have been doing over the past, a much more systematized, decentralized in many forms, but also centralized, because we need the kind of coordination and the kind of economies of scale that we need to build in. Definitely, we will work with you on the timing, but also do be cognizant of the fact that we do have also our cycle in terms of project cycle, in which we will try to match our needs with your timing as well. On the question of impact, policy impact, I think that's a major issue that we've been wrestling over the years in terms of, yes, you do present policy recommendation. At the end of the day, whether those policy recommendations will be taken up by your governments is certainly another issue. We trust that we do have a permanent and continuous presence in the field, and the type of advocacy work that our officers are doing will make some difference in terms of the policy recommendation. And of course, it goes back to the credibility of those policy recommendations as well. And that's where we wanted to rely on you to tap into your network of expertise. Last question. Carolyn.
Thank you, Minh, for a very powerful presentation. So far, the comments have been focusing on your third proposal, and I would like to express an interest in the second proposal, at least, of the Associate Expert Network. I think that student feedback always reminds us that there's nothing that they prefer better than a course that is discussing policies where we have had direct involvement in. So I think that short-term assignments at the country level is actually going to be very powerful in our classroom. So moving forward, if this proposal was accepted, could you tell us more about how to go about establishing this?
Yeah. I think what we would like to have is a feedback from the core team of the GPPN in terms of our proposal. We do have 2 contact names there. Tam, my colleague who's sitting there. Tam, if you could raise your hand. We will also circulate a hard copy of our presentation, or we will post it through the GPPN network for ease of reference. But certainly, we will continue. You have our names here. We're ready to roll, and certainly we would like to get an information, a confirmation from the GPPN so that we can start working. Thank you.
I would like to thank you very much, Dean Kishore Mubabane, for his kind invitation to this conference, this very exciting conference and to allow us to tell a little words about two projects about the IRG, from the IRG. I can say that this conference for the last 2 days has been really something very stimulating for our institute for various reasons, but especially I think because of its insistence on networking and mutual sharing experience. I'm particularly referring to this morning Kishore's plea for globalization of public policy education, and also what Robert Klitgaard told about the necessity to develop distance virtual tools for collaborative research projects. Now, the two proposals we have today seems to us to be quite in line with this spirit, and maybe also quite in line with what has been proposed so far. I would just like to say just a little word about the IRG Institute of Research for Research and Debate on Governance. This is a small think tank based in Paris, which is mainly concerned with the processes of elaboration and evaluation of public policy, and which is supported by the French-Swiss Foundation, Charles Leopold-Meyer Foundation, but also the Ford Foundation and the French and Swiss Ministries of Foreign Affairs. It collaborates with a variety of partners in various countries in the world, universities in Africa, in the United States, Europe, and Latin America, with civil society leaders, with some international organizations. We have some connection with the UNDP especially, and with public policy makers. And what we do is to disseminate, to put into debate and to disseminate information through a website and a database, through publication, international meetings, etc. Among our research programs, I would like to mention two specific tools which might be of interest for the GPPN. The first one is a project of an observatory of training in public affairs, which is a space based in a database and based also in a website, of course, under construction, to share information and reflection about training in public affairs in different parts of the world. Now, we have started this program 2 years ago, it's quite recent, by initiating a series of studies together with a little number of initial partners that are Sciences Po, especially the American Center of Sciences Po, the Swiss Institut des Hautes Études d'Administration Publique, ORUS, which is a small think tank specialized in the reform of university in Latin America, and also a consortium of 7 Chinese schools of administration, the Chinese Training Center for Senior Civil Servant, and 6 regional schools of administration. And today, a number of additional schools of administration or MPA from countries like Greece, Italy, Poland, Germany, Spain, or Uruguay have expressed their wish to collaborate with this observatory. What those partners and us have tried to do is to describe, to analyze, and to compare programs of training public affairs in different parts of the world. This is not concerned with building a mere catalog nor an internet guide. This is not the point. We wanted to have a more qualitative approach, that is through interviews, discussion with training leaders, analysis, production of articles. We would like the observatory websites and meetings to provide background and references to universities who want to either to innovate in better adapting training to new realities, or simply to create a new MPA. This is, for instance, the case of distinguished Cameroon University, who asked us to help providing material and ideas to create a new MPA. And we think that others could be interested in the future on that point. And we think also that this observatory could help, could help understanding through the observation of training processes, each country's administrative culture, and also underlying conception of governance which are behind the training devices and systems. Now the observatory is currently at the stage of accumulating information. So far we have 85 programs in the world have been registered, described and analyzed as far as curriculum, profile of students, main university links or contents are concerned. About 20 to 25 in the USA, the same number in Europe, the same number in China, and the same number in Latin America. And each time we try to initiate also a process of transversal analysis to, in order to show the specificity of each regional system of training. If we were next year, I would be very happy to present you the websites, but it is, so far it is not publicly open. It's still an internal database, which will be open to the public within maybe 6 months. And of course, we shall communicate the link to everybody. This database has the particularity of being organized through a series of common inquiry guidelines in 4 languages: Chinese, English, French, and Spanish. Guidelines which have been built together in a joint collaborative process by 2 years ago by Chinese, European, and American experts and Latin American experts who came up to a consensus and decided to adopt the same format, which was not an obvious, evident thing to obtain. Now, this is the first project we have. We think that really the GPPN is a position to bring really precious inputs in this observatory, but maybe above all to help us now conceiving further development, to discuss the format, to reorient the system. That is, we are very happy if it's possible to widen the partnership. I think this has also a lot to see with what Anne-Marie presented about PolicyNet, and we have to have discussion about this because this might be complementary. The second tool is concerned with something we just spoke about with the UNDP, with the capstone. It's a project we would like to propose to the GPPN, a multi-MPA international workshop of students between 3 or 4 universities members of the GPPN, maybe next year, maybe also for a series of capstone, multi-MPA capstone, which might be by the number of the student team participating somewhat an innovation in this obviously specific pedagogic tool, international workshop working for students, which has been for some year quite an important element of the curriculum of most of the GPPN members. We, in IRG, we have invested so far in around 10 international workshops of students in order to complement our research programs as clients. We have worked with Columbia, with Sciences Po. We're this year a capstone leader with the MPA of Sciences Po. We've been working also with the University of Montreal, with the Polytechnical School of Dakar, with the University of Los Andes in Bogota, etc. And this investment we had in this tool is motivated by the fact that really we felt that the groups of students have really proved to be able to bring new perspectives, new approach, new resources to our research program, and also because in each case they constitute very intercultural international teams, which is usually quite hard to find in traditional teams of researchers. Now we have experimented 2 kinds of workshop in one university only, but also integrated workshops, more complicated but more exciting, between 2 universities. For instance, we have supported a workshop between Sciences Po and SIPA in 2005 about American and French vision of global governance, and another one between University of Montreal and the University of Dakar about the question of public-private partnership. And each time the idea was to have an integrated team of students of both universities, working together on a common report and having a daily communication, exchanging through the net or through the telephone on the advancement of their work, meeting together, etc. This has helped to accumulate a beginning of experience on the methodology and tools for this kind of workshop, especially as far as web tools for of interactive work is concerned. Now, we would like to propose to go one step further in this system and imagine an integrated workshop between more than 2 universities, that is between maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or even more university members of the GPPN, believing that this would be of mutual benefit for us as clients, of course, but also maybe for the GPPN by the contribution to strengthen the cohesion between the students of the different universities. This idea would be, the idea would be to have a comparative analysis on the same issue on different national contexts, and to be more precise, our proposal is to integrate the multi-MPA workshop or capstone in one of our research program, or on governance indicators, or on corruption questions maybe, or on the question of trust in states and the reform of public institutions. We have some precise idea of subject, but we would like the subject to be defined and decided with the concerned universities. Second thing is that we propose to help coordinating the workshop. We are very conscious that this will ask us a particular care for a lot of problem of coordination, timing, logistics, etc., especially the different of temporality of the different universities. And we can commit ourselves, depending on the quality of the result, of course, to secure a valorization of those this kind of multi-MPA capstone through editorial programs, and through maybe organizing a common conference that would gather all the different approaches. So thank you very much. These are the 2 proposals open to discussion.
Can I now invite the 6 facilitators up onto the stage, please? We'll get you mic'd up, and then we'll begin the proceedings. And while they're coming up to the stage, I'm going to start with 2 points. The first point I'm going to make is I hope you all noticed that there was a piece of paper on your chair saying participants. We have unfortunately missed out some of the participants in the original printing that was sent to you, so we added a few more for you. The second point I'm going to make to you is to tell you a true story. It happened in this room exactly 24 hours ago. And I walked in here to listen to a fascinating discussion on the panel about Social Security and pension reform. So as I walked in, Mary Jo Bain was speaking, so I sat down there and I closed my eyes and I said, I'm going to think very deeply about what Mary Jo Bain is saying. A few hours later, Mary Jo saw me and she said, Kishore, you slept through my presentation. And she was right. So I can empathize with all of you. Now, that's the only privilege that the Dean of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy has as Dean. He's allowed to sleep. None of you are allowed to do so. So why don't, even as I make my way to the chair, I was going to suggest that each one, I presume you can do it within 10 minutes. We'll go in the alphabetical order of Session A, Session B. It's in your program. Session C, Session D, Session E, Session F. I suggest that each one speak for about 10 minutes, and immediately after each one, if you have a burning question or a point of clarification, I'll give you the floor to do that. If not, then we will go on and then have a sort of a broader discussion when all 6 of them finish. But I can tell you that having attended 2 of the sessions, I learned a lot, and I'm very confident that you will learn a lot from these 6 presentations. So, Anne-Marie, having set the expectations and the bar very high, you better meet it, okay?
All right.